South India's #1 travel brand. You know you are special when you're with GT Holidays.
Milky Mist Paneer. Milky Mist Paneer.
Hello, Aravind essay. We need to talk.
Yes, we
Yes,
sure need to, buddy.
we need to talk. Listen, I wanted to tell you that you're saying that this is your first parents-friendly show. Okay. Really hats off to you for the screenplay, right? It looked like a screenplay, like the way you start, the jokes weave in, and certain elements come in, and then you kind of take everything and finish it. It's super brilliant.
Hey, thank you so
And
much.
I know you credited Baggy for helping you figure out the structure,
Yes.
but whatever it is, it's like amazing.
Thank you very
Like really, really, it's like watching a film. Like almost like I could almost sense how scenes and blocks are coming together and like kind of trailing at the end. So it's brilliant. But more than that, I just watched it. I was smiling a lot, but I was also very sad. And I mean this like a real compliment because it wasn't like a stand-up comedy show. It was like I'm smiling and I'm laughing, but there's also a lot of points I'm identifying with because in some strange shape, way or form, I'm also like a public figure. There's a lot of identification points. And I could, in the end, you're saying like, is this true or is this not true? And I'm on the side of, dude, this is 100% true. So, but first, let's do this little plug. So, this show is available
On Insider, a website called Insider, where it's you buy a ticket and it's like a video on demand. You buy a ticket and you watch it as many times as you want for a period of 20 odd days from November 22nd to December 7th.
So yeah, so this was just brilliant. How long did it take for you to crack this structure? Once you decided that this is what I wanted to talk about, which we'll talk about later,
Yeah.
I'm just interested as that structure, the screenplay or the theater play or whatever you want to call it. How long did it take for you to crack that?
After I had the main, all the main pieces of the story,
Right.
it took me about, it took me about 6 months after I went live with it. By that I mean, I had to go live, I had to tour, I had to put the product out there even though the structure wasn't ready.
Okay.
But only that sort of a scenario where performing to a live audience with in an official capacity kind of puts the pressure on you to crack it soon enough because you realize you're not feeling like the show is hitting a sweet spot. So 6 months live after it became live, 6 months of touring and tweaking led to me eventually cracking a structure which gave me the conviction to deliver this. Because it's all about the conviction with which you tell these points. If you tell the same points with a lot of flakiness or with a lot of sympathy, then you will probably walk out feeling more sad for me than funny, laughing about the situation.
Right.
So just that internal conviction I had to search because I myself found myself in a lot of self-crippling doubt about can this work, how can it make it work, things like that. So
Yeah. Also, I think it must, I don't know, was it difficult for you to, put yourself out there, but laughing at it or trying to make people laugh at it? Because I'm assuming that you go in with the conviction that maybe 50% of the audience is saying, okay, this guy is just making me laugh.
yeah.
Maybe 50% is kind of trying to say, okay, this is not really seeming like a comedy show. There's like some dark undertones to it. But the other 50% is probably just saying, I want essay to make me laugh.
Yeah.
So did you go with that kind of a, like, okay, there's going to be some people who are just going to see it like a regular stand-up, and some people are going to probably like dig a little deeper. Did you go with that?
As in, did I go with what about that? As in, I'm aware of these two categories. What
Did you say like I know that both people are going to be there, so the show has to satisfy both?
Ama.
Right.
That is the tussle, I guess. That's also the tussle as a writer that I have because as much, I think it's those two categories you mentioned are also two types of writing that I would like to dabble between, wherein you do want to get into meaningful zones, things that are slightly reflective, introspective, but without compromising the baseline of funniness or humor quotient,
Yeah.
wherein entertaining people, but finding different ways of entertaining people. I think one of the shows that gave me the conviction to do this was a show on Netflix called Nanette by Hannah Gadsby.
Okay.
She's a Australian bisexual comedian who pretty much spoke about how humor comes from a very dark place.
Right.
And made me cry while laughing. And I've never cried and laughed at the same time. And that show made me, while I was writing or thinking of writing a new show, when I saw Nanette on Netflix, and I got the conviction that, okay, I've done this long enough to, now is probably the time to dabble with something not conventional stand-up in its sense, but I'm seeing enough proof of concepts in the world to take strength from.
Right. So because I've seen I don't know if you remember, but you called me for like one of your early shows at Music Academy. Sanjay and I was sitting next to me.
Yes.
Sanjay Subramaniam.
Yeah.
I think Sean Roldan was
Yes.
there. Like one very very early show. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't even know how many years ago.
5,
And
6 years.
that was like sketch. You're like,
Correct.
okay, one sketch works. Some maybe one doesn't work that well. One works very well.
Correct.
So but that's a typical set. You're doing a
Correct.
set and you're doing like a sketch comedy, right?
Correct.
It's like this. I'm not overselling this, but I can't stress how, like, I had tears in my eyes at the end. I was like real. I had like I'm not saying this because I know you or we go back a bit of. I'm not saying because of that. I genuinely had tears because I don't know whether because it spoke to me, whether I felt sorry for you, whether I was like impressed by your combination of humor and sadness or what it was. But by the end, when you put that picture, that photograph, which I'm not going to spoil, I was like, dude, I had like one super emotional reaction. Have other people told you that?
Yes. Strangely, I think I should first admit I cried throughout this first 6 months of touring with the show. I would cry before getting on stage. I would cry after getting off stage, because there is something about this process that I wasn't ready for.
Right.
But thankfully my support system told me this is a rite of passage. You have to go through that, growth pangs and சொல்லுவாங்கல்ல அந்த மாதிரி you have to feel, because I felt like every time I had to go, I felt like போவேன்னா ஒரு மாதிரி, why should I go tell my story like that?
Yeah.
I mean, is this trade-off even worth it? I mean, what is coming out of it? Especially when the funniness wasn't at the levels that I was used to.
Yeah.
And it took me 6 months of touring to actually crack a narrative that made me comfortable about the funniness ceiling of a show.
Right.
That pain was there. I can understand why people felt this way. And yes, I did get a lot of people feeling this way. My family members would come and tell me, my cousins in different cities in the world who say the show, like, man, I didn't know you're going through this. I'm sorry. Or but that was never the intention. For me, I guess the strength came from actually when people started writing into me about the show.
Right.
Because I've never gotten long messages like this. Because earlier they used to be like, great show, thanks, great show, thanks.
Like I had fun time, I had a
that's
good
all.
time. Yeah.
Now
yeah.
here is where they actually sat down, especially because in the show I emphasize the value of we don't write to each other.
Yeah.
We don't put effort into feedback and things like that. I got long feedbacks, letters to the editor, to joke panni. The thing that I joke about in the show, they're like, here's a letter to the editor to you. You being the editor, I hope this letter satisfies your expectation for exhaustive communication. And those sort of messages is what actually my therapist also told me to take strength from and not quit on this show while touring. And I used to screenshot all of it and keep it and share it with them, just my friends and my therapist, just to be able to read it and think about it. The messaging here is slightly bigger than the humor, and therefore there is reason to keep doing it. And because at different stages I realize as an artist I seek different motivations. எனக்கு முந்தி இருந்த அதே யங் யப்பி ஸ்டோரியை சொல்ற மோட்டிவேஷன் இப்போ இல்ல.
I guess I still remember you had this bit about boarding a train compartment and then checking out the list of people to see if there's any
22F, 23F, 24F. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was 12 years ago. இன்னைக்கு mental health, anxiety, overthinking, therapy, depression, இந்த மாதிரி விஷயங்கள். So I guess it's very important. I have to thank my support system. Especially my doc, she told me, hey, screenshot pannu nanthi unaku vara, and the people who write in taking the effort, right, after you've responded to them, screenshot that and share it, and let's remember what are all the things. Because when you perform and you're going, you're only measuring the show by the barometer of the laughs. That's all. What else do I have to know? Only these sort of messages actually tell you beyond the show. Because I don't have such conversations with you. Thankfully, I have the pleasure of, okay, you are someone who can deep dive into things and I would love to know how it works. But the people who write in, it means a lot. So I emphasize that.
Yeah, actually, we spoke about the show at an airport, if you remember. We had a long chat about the show before I even saw it. Like, I mean, maybe 2 years ago or something like that. So that was the inception, I think, of the show.
Yes.
Randomly, we ran into each other and had this thing. But I was like, this is coming from a dark place because, I have wondered as well, why it's so difficult to have conversations anymore, because everybody wants to be like at the level of a WhatsApp message. Hey, how are you? I'm fine, thanks. But it's difficult to get into not that you want to have that all the time, but the few times that you want to like have like a serious, meaningful as a not like about the whatever it is. It's like something of heft.
மீனிங்ஃபுல்னு சொல்லாலே கொஞ்சம் ட்ரிவியலா பேச முடியாதான்ற ஒரு
Yeah,
fear
yeah, yeah,
வருது.
yeah. It's not that.
Yeah,
Like,
I
but
know what
something that's just like in the old days, you go with a friend to a beach and just sit down and chumma like talk about many things. But now it's all become very focused, like very like agenda driven,
transactional.
transactional, right? Because the thing is also because everybody's time is constricted, I think, for whatever reason.
Correct.
Because I think so much time is spent on social media or whatever it is. So you meet like a bunch of friends and nobody wants to be the bummer bringing up a serious topic, right? Everybody wants to say, hey, let's have fun. So like, what are you doing, what are you doing, what are you doing, what are you doing? You catch up at a general level, but then you really don't have a conversation because you don't know anything about the friend since the last time you met them. How much you knew is the same time. That knowledge is what you have this time as well, because it's a repeat of that same scenario, and then it's a repeat of the same scenario. What gave you the courage to say, because I really mean this, you need courage to put out yourself naked like this, because your parents are going to see it for the first time. At least, see, the world knows comedy comes from Chaplin, this, that, all those stories are there, but like Aravind, I say, funny guy, he always making jokes. His Insta is full of these laugh moments, and everything is like a one-liner. To kind of put yourself out there and say, boss, I messed up and this is my way of dealing with it. Where did that first bit of courage come from?
That was actually, I don't think I did it with courage. I did it with absolute fear and trepidation, which is where I had the support system teach me to take strength from the messages I was receiving. I don't think I can sit here and say got the courage, but I got the conviction. Courage ku conviction ku I would like to make a distinction. The conviction came from the fact that I am telling authentic stories, that it belongs to me and my experiences. So I knew it is coming from the right place. If I have that level of conviction that, if it's coming from the right place, I can make it work. When you borrow somebody else's experiences, when I lose that conviction.
Right.
Whereas when I knew whatever I was telling here are all things from that I've experienced, just that which parts am I exaggerating, which parts am I manipulating, which parts am I tinkering. Okay, adanala I got the conviction. The courage never came, to be honest, Buddy. I would be lying if I told you I got the courage. I was always in doubt. Even while launching the show, I used to ask my friends, do I need to do this? Is this really worth it? I can write something else. Do I need to do it? But then, thankfully, you have people who understand your pattern of behavior and don't validate your fears, and they tell you, okay, I hear you, but go do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear you, but go do it. So eventually, having done it enough, you kind of get over the hump of that fear and realize that fear is actually, it's just it's not, the fear has nothing to do with how people are consuming it. They don't see the fear at all when I'm performing. And I just had to crack the content for it. And once I cracked it, and the structure gave me the conviction of, okay, this is a show I'm very proud of now. Once the structure changed to make the whole thing feel cohesive. That was my biggest problem. More than going naked, the problem for me was, while writing, it was so uncomfortable to write. So I used to, எப்படி சொல்றதுன்னா, வாந்தி எடுத்துருவேன். ஸோ வாந்தி எடுத்து வால்யூம் வந்துருச்சு. ஒரு 90 minutes மெட்டீரியல், ஒரு ஸ்கிரிப்ட் வந்துருச்சு வாந்தி எடுத்ததுக்கப்புறம். ஆனால் அதுக்கப்புறம் அனௌன்ஸ் பண்ணி டூர் பண்ண ஆரம்பிச்சிட்டேன். I guess that restlessness came from this வாந்தி has to be shaped and made into a thing before people see it. Now that was making me feel uncomfortable. ஐயோ பார்க்குறாங்களே, நான் இன்னும் செட் பண்ணலையே, என்ன சொல்கிறது, லஞ்ச் டேபிள் ரெடி பண்ண முன்னாடி வந்து உட்காந்துட்டாங்கன்னா எப்படி இருக்கும்? 10 minutes கொடுங்க, செட் பண்ணணும். Now that cracking,
lunch table vandi. Like
so somewhere when I cracked that, after all the content had come out, when I cracked the shape and I structure and got what I wanted, from there I think courage came from there. So it was an internal battle to, yeah, it's okay to say some, be brave and all, but do it still. You're still a comedian trying to tell a joke or make funny things, rather than a TEDx talk. Because if it was a TEDx talk, I would have been happy with the first draft itself, because it's real and it's coming from a good place. Yeah. But it's entertainment in பார்க்கும்போது, internal OCD was not letting me rest till I cracked the structure.
No, so again, brilliant structure, and like, just, it was like watching the equivalent of a movie. Like the way it just progressed, and it started, built and ended. It was just super brilliant. I know I'm saying this again and again, but I can't get over the structure of.
Then I can tell, I would love to share a bit of insight on how this works, because your observation is spot on when you said about the previous show and this show in terms of the difference in jokes. The previous show, as you rightly said, is just a collection of joke books.
Yeah.
ஏன்னா we used to just accumulate jokes as joke booksல
Yeah.
ஓகே எனக்கு ஓட்ட போட்ட அண்டர்வேர் பத்தி இதெல்லாம் இருக்கு ஓ ஃபர்ஸ்ட் டைம் பையிங் காண்டம் பத்தி இது இருக்கு ஓ ஃபர்ஸ்ட் டைம் நான் ஸ்ட்ரிப் கிளப் போனேன் இப்படி இருக்கு அரேஞ்ச் மேரேஜ் பத்தி இப்படி இருக்கு ஜோக் புக்ல கலெக்ஷன் ஆஃப் ஜோக்ஸ் வச்சு I wrote 2 shows Madras Ida and I was not Ida, which was, as you said, okay, sketch over, and in a series of 12 sketches 8 will work for some, 6 will work அந்த மாதிரி. This was the first time where I sat down with an empty canvas and I told myself I don't want the crutch of going into my accessing my joke book. So even though in reserve I had few more jokes that I had not yet displayed, the idea was treat this as a blank canvas. And strangely I've never named my show before writing it. Always the name comes as a retrospective name for the file after have you written everything. You look back and you'll be like, in the topics la common theme இதுவா இருக்கு Madras, okay Madras Ida அப்படி தான் போட்டோமே தவிர this is the first time I actually with the blank canvas the Google Doc la போய் நான் we need to talk னு போட்டேன். ஏன்னா I knew okay if I'm going to tell the world who I actually am, it felt like a moment of me coming and telling the audience, okay guys, we need to talk கொஞ்சம் நான் உண்மையா சொல்லணும் என்ன பத்தி அப்படின்னு. So that gave me the conviction, okay, that's the tone to which take. So then afterwards, the reason why the whole thing works as a screenplay, which was unlike the previous shows, is because I wrote it as, okay, if this is the theme, everything has to go within this structure and theme only.
Right.
There can't be any topic that goes somewhere else. Speaking of it, அப்படின்ற ஒரு segue கொடுப்பாங்க usually. Speaking of life, அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு they'll shamelessly come back into the topic again. I didn't want to do anything that goes so far away.
That's there were no crutches because, like, for example, when you're writing a screenplay, what you look for is this character disappearing? No. Bring that character back so that it's not like, a character's there and suddenly. So the gag comes back. It comes back after just when you think you've forgotten the gag. Oh right, he's going back to that gag. The way it just builds and builds and builds, and you bring those blocks together, you assemble them, and you get to the end, and it's like just this progression finish. And I don't know. I was just like, how long did it take for him to crack this? But then you answered that. But at the back of your mind, to do anything like this, you need, and I insist on using this word courage, because it's not easy to, again I'm using this word, to get naked in front of people and to kind of get emotionally naked in front of people. It's at least for, I think maybe Indians, it's not the most easy thing, or maybe South Indians, I don't know what it is, but it's like we are not people that goes and hugs our parents, those kinds of things. In fact, you have a joke about hugging your mother. But so that there's going to be the perception of essay is permanently going to change after the show. So there's going to be a before essay and an after essay after the show. So you're pretty much taking an axe to the earlier Madras Ida and I was not that those shows, and saying, dude, that's the guy you thought you knew, this is the guy. And so now I'm really looking forward to what you're going to do next. So the thing is, what is playing in your mind when you wrote it? I'm talking about the external, not cracking the show itself, but in terms of, oh God, my parents are going to see this. Oh God, my suddenly I'm exposing myself, and like I know that this is there, but it's like I'm. It's in a way it's like coming out of the closet. It's like it is that.
It is that. Yeah.
So what is going through your mind?
Being a natural overthinker, these questions did keep coming, but I kept telling myself or taking strength from every artist I've found a connection with has always gone back and gone through an evolution, and this is par for the course.
Right.
So you have to accept that not that I wasn't an overthinker when I wrote the previous shows, but I wasn't so aware of how it was affecting me and coming in the way of my life, like how I am today. And I feel I never gave it the importance that I have today, the luxury to be able to attend to it, or to be able to talk about it, or to be able to make work around it. I didn't have even the tools to write a show like this back then. So kandipa there was a lot of anxiety about how I would react if I continuously put myself out there. But I think that's the case with any show when you put yourself out there, more so when you are kind of coming out of the closet, like you said. But I was very happy to break all these perceptions, buddy. At the end of the day, what excites me is அந்த நேரத்துல authentic-ஆ ஒரு ஸ்டோரியை சொல்றது தான் is the driving force. So when you look at that, you are just a messenger through which the thing is passing through. So therefore you're happy to be like, okay, if this story is coming through me at this stage in my life, maybe this is the purpose now. So I was happy to let it pass through. Every time I felt that uncomfortable feeling of இது பண்ணுமா, இந்த டைமில் தான் பண்ணும், இதுக்கு தான் நம்ம 10-12 வருஷமா இதை பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம், இந்த டைமில் இந்த இப்போ இருக்கிற மெச்சூரிட்டி அண்ட் டூல்ஸ் வச்சு தான் இந்த மாதிரி ஒன்று எழுத முடியும், 10 வருஷம் முன்னாடி எழுதிருக்கவே முடியாதுன்னு டெல் myself. So
because as you mean obviously as you get older, the way you look at the world changes, the way you look at yourself changes. All that stuff like happens. But in general, what is your plan for the show? And like right now it's on this OTT platform.
no, it's not an OTT platform, it's like a ticketing platform.
It's a ticketing platform. It's like you pay for it and kind of a thing. And so it's for a limited period.
Yes.
And
after this, I honestly don't know, because the landscape with OTTs and stand-up is right now changing in a bit. I have not produced or commissioned a stand-up show in a long time. So I saw some of my colleagues in Bombay do the same thing, where independent distribution, basically take the show directly to the audience, put it up on a platform, and the best part is OTTs, we didn't have this ability where if we'll put up a show on an OTT, it's not necessarily available in all countries due to different countries have different content library, even if it's the same brand.
Yeah.
If you have an Amazon Prime account, it doesn't necessarily mean you have the same access to the same library. Country to country மாறும். இங்க அப்படி கிடையாது. This independent distribution, putting it up on a website like this and streaming it for people, gives us the ability to tap into everyone who's come to our live shows, but say their better half couldn't come because one of them had to stay back. Now this is their way of being able to, hey, remember that show he came 1.5 years ago to US, that city? Here's how you see it.
Right.
So this is just a new ecosystem that we are experimenting with, and stand-up has always been an art form that experiments with new things like this, and kind of has to get ahead of the curve because we have that ability to maneuver, I feel.
There's one lovely bit that I like. I don't know if I can reveal it. The S and the A in your name
you can.
stands for stress and anxiety. What I really wanted to know is when you've established yourself and you see other people coming up, right? There's naturally going to be a sense of competition, healthy competition, and all that kind of stuff. How do you deal with the stress and anxiety that maybe that insecurity brings? Of course you're established, of course you're a brand name, all that is there, but how do you deal with the fact that there are other people out there where you once were, and there's like suddenly there's like so many people on YouTube, because when the YouTube's comedy space compared to when you were there versus now, it's
crowded.
It's crowded.
Yeah.
Like how do you deal with that? Do you watch everything? Do you?
There's nothing much to deal with except observe and understand where it's going. But with respect to people who are actively doing the live aspect of it, which is the touring part, the best way is to do it along with them. Like me and Alex exchange notes often. So we are therefore invested in each other's progress. So when he's experimenting with the show, for example, his current show, he's experimenting something unlike his previous one, where he's also taking a big leap of faith. So then that's where we play a role in giving him the conviction on, hey, okay, let's push. So in that way we're pushing each other. When I went and told him, hey, I'm trying something like this, he told me why it can. It's the need of the hour. We give each other the right words at the right time. So in that sense, I think as long as you're invested in each other's journey, it will end up helping each other a lot, while observing the general traffic where it's going is something I do. But adhukku mela affect, it really, you can't let it affect you, because you have to create what excites you at the end of the day.
No, that's easy to say that you can't let it affect you.
You can't let it,
but sometimes it'll sneak up and do something.
And you just swipe to the next video.
That's a good one. No, finally I want to ask you, there's this part where you say, you can't ignore your haters because, there is something happening. But first of all, why do you read comments?
I feel there is one addiction part to that, in terms of you're mining for data. I look at it as literal data mining, wherein you kind of see what sort of reactions that are possible from and perceptions that can come from a work of art. So in that sense, I think it's very important. Like I told you, if I didn't read comments, I would have never gotten the strength about the bigger impact, the intangible impact of putting a show like this out there, for a number of people who write saying, I felt heard, I felt seen. Thank you so much for putting yourself out there. Now, that comes only because I also go and search for, has anyone put themselves out there the way I put myself out there on stage. So that is the upside to it. But there's no chat GPT that can be like, filter out the good ones and show me the bullet points of all the best comments. I wish life could work that way.
I know, seriously.
But it is a landmine. You have to navigate around it. So I mean, I think the comment section in many ways is a reflection of your mind. It's like, if you let it go haywire, then it's like much like the noise in your head, it can get to you. But if you can immediately stop it, okay, we didn't come here for reading this comment. Stop, we deflect it and then go to what you were searching for. Because there have been so many great perspectives that also comes from that. That's the only way I get feedback. Otherwise, there's no other way of understanding does it work. Because friends are not the actual barometer. It's a way that ends up becoming an echo chamber after a point. Whereas, where do I get perspectives from people who have no common ground with me, or I have not completely different part of the world, but could come and tell me, hey, these are the things that work for me or connected with me. That will make me more mindful the next time I sit down to write.
Yeah. It's just that sometimes it can get very vicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the part which
Downside to it.
Yeah, downside to it. But yeah, but I really, thank you for talking about this, because I really, like you can say, I love the show.
Thank
but
you.
but more than that,
This means a lot.
I wanted to just say that to the audience, that just because we spoke seriously about it, it doesn't mean it's not funny. There are laughs, but there's an like an understructure, or whatever you call it. The foundation is coming from a dark place, and I think it's superb the way you build on that, so that the people looking just to laugh can also just laugh, and even if they don't want to go inside, but then the people who want to dig deeper can then go there. So congratulations, I think this is your best work so far.
Thank you so much.
And I know that it's been a journey to get here, because you cannot write something like this unless you've been through a journey.
Yes.
And it can't just like erupt out of nowhere. It's like, so all the best, and I hope many people watch this.
Thank you so much, buddy. It means the world coming from you. I can't emphasize that enough, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Thank you so much.
South India's #1 travel brand. You know you are special when you're with GT Holidays.
Milky Mist Paneer. Milky Mist Paneer.